SAP Fiori user experience evolves every year to keep pace with the latest design and technology trends. In part 2 of A Hitchhiker's Guide to SAP Fiori and its Technologies, the 2025 edition, with the latest design and technology trends. Sorry, here we go. We'll dive deeper into the tools and technologies that power Fiori today. Welcome everyone to today's live expert session. We are thrilled to have you join us. I am very pleased again to have with me Oliver Graeff, Director Product Management for SAP UI5. Fiori held various positions in development as well as in project and product management. He is passionate about engaging with customers and spreading knowledge on SAP technologies. And now, without further ado, over to you, Oliver.
Thank you, Tania. Thank you very much. So I hope you can see me and see my slide. Tania, can you just confirm?
Yes, I can see your slides.
Okay, excellent. So thanks for the introduction. I'm Oliver, Product Manager for SAP UI5, and today is the second part of the Hitchhiker's Guide to Fiori User Experience and its Technologies. So the idea is that this session, both sessions, give you a practical introduction into Fiori and the related tools and technologies, so that you get an overview what kind of technologies are needed, what should you learn and dive into, and get some practical entry points, for example, tutorials to try this out. So this is the idea, and we started on Tuesday with the first part where we looked at the Fiori user experience, the design system, and the experience for business users, how they experience, for example, call up Fiori applications. And we also looked at UI technologies to realize that UI technologies such as SAP UI5 and, for example, Fiori elements to efficiently build SAP Fiori applications. So in today's session, in part 2, we want to have a look at the tools to build this experience. Tools we use in SAP to build our standard Fiori apps, for example, for S/4HANA, and tools you can use as a partner or as a customer to build Fiori apps, but not only to build new apps, custom apps, but also to extend existing standard apps, because I think this is a very popular or important scenario that SAP has standard apps and you would like to make use of them, but they're not 100% what your business users expect. You want to add a bit of custom coding, a bit of custom logic, and maybe custom field, or you want to remove functionality fields from SAP, which are too complex for you. So both are topics we cover today, building custom apps as well as extending standard apps from SAP. And then, of course, we'll have a Q&A, time for Q&A at the end. So first, I would like to check with you whether you remember this slide from Tuesday. So this is an overview of the topics in those two sessions here in the Hitchhiker's Guide. As you can see at the top, it's the different user roles. So we were looking at the business user, that was mainly on Tuesday. And today we're going to look at the developer and what we call key user here. So how applications are being developed. So each of those colored boxes here is one chapter. And on Tuesday, we looked into the green box, and we have 4 more boxes to handle today. And we are going to start with the development tools here. And for that, I want to check with you, see what kind of development environments did you use. So could you please, again, use the YouTube chat to put in which development environments did you use so far? So some of the most popular candidates in this context here I put here, SE80 for the classical ABAP development tools in Eclipse, or Web IDE, or the, let's say, newer strategic version of that in SAP Build, which is Build Code or Business Application Studio? Did you use Build Apps? And we'll also cover that, or VS Code. Can you just put this in the YouTube chat? So you need to be logged on in YouTube and then just add it to the YouTube chat, please. I see Thorsten. SEAT, Web IDE, VS Code, Eclipse. So you have a good experience then, and you probably also have some opinion about those environments. Very good. Anyone else? Which kind of development environment did you use? Thorsten, you might want to look into SAP Build. That will be a topic today. So we have a question here why there's no mention of SE8 for S/4HANA Cloud. So I will also mention that, but you probably want to look at the ABAP Development Tools in Eclipse, which is the strategic environment for ABAP, and we'll mention that. Anyone else to put the IDEs they use in the chat? Just put it to the YouTube chat window. Okay, let me continue. Maybe just a second question. If you are a developer, again, if you're not a developer, you're perfectly fine. Stay in this session. It's not addressing only developers. But if you are a developer, are you more a type of developer who's looking for more guidance, as I called it here? So do you want to use wizards, templates, maybe low-code, no-code environments to help you, or nowadays Gen AI or even vibe coding? Or are you a developer who wants to have full flexibility? You want to have command line and code and no visual tools or anything. Let me know. Are you on the left or on the right? Okay, we have some more IDEs. So I see there's someone who used Build Apps. So you will Build Apps, you're on the left side here, but you also use Build Code and SEAT, so that would be on the right. So let me know, are you more on the left or more on the right? Do you want more guidance, visual tooling, low code, no code? Or do you want to see code, work in code, maybe command line? I find this interesting, Thorsten. You put usually more flexibility, but there are cases for the other. And I think that is something, and I'll mention that later in the session. I think this is where it's getting interesting, where you have both, right? If you can use templates, wizards, low code, no code, visual tools, they should give you additional efficiency, right? As a developer, if they help you to make you faster with development and think of AI tools, of course, this is good. But you would still need the other option, right? Because maybe those visual tools are not sufficient. You would still maybe have the option to go to code and do the, how we call this, do the last mile, right? To have some more flexibility. I assume this is what you mean. More flexibility. So there's different opinions as you can see here, right? So I think let's park this for a moment and revisit this later. But I think it's getting really good and beneficial if you can do both. Remember, on Tuesday, the Fiori elements. Use as much Fiori elements as possible and as much freestyle UI5 as needed. I feel the same is here. Use as much visual tools, low code, no code as possible, and as much code as needed. same logic. This is my opinion. Okay, now let's start. Let's have a look into the development environments: pro code, low code, and no code, if you want to call it like that. So you've probably heard of SAP Build, and this is big in all our communication and announcement. And in case you follow SAP Tech Ed next week, you will hear a lot about SAP Build. And I mean, here you can see the whole context of SAP Build, how it connects to backend systems, solutions that are included, AI support, which are included. But I want to focus on this box here at the top. I want to focus on these 4 capabilities. And these are basically, I mentioned some of them. Digital workspaces is what we looked at on Tuesday with the work zone, for example, or SAP Start. So having a digital experience, a workspace, or you can say a Fiori Launchpad experience to access applications, to call up applications, to simplify it a bit. AI agents to define and build own agents. This is obviously very new. Workflows and process automations. There were tools also in SAP to handle these process automation requirements. And this is where we want to go a bit deeper today, application and extensions. And I want to make it clear, the SAP Build is not yet another new solutions you need to decide about, whether you keep going on with, for example, SAP Build Code, as you mentioned, or ADT and Eclipse, or whether you move to SAP Build. That's not the case. SAP Build is a solution, a unified solution, as it says here at the left, of existing technologies. Of course, there's new stuff, right? The AI agent, and there's new features in all of these areas. But for example, for building Fiori applications, this is in this area here, and we are using the technologies we already talked about, and you may even already use, or which we have for a couple of years, right? So we continue using these technologies. It's not a decision, now I'm not doing UI5 anymore, I'm doing Build also. Or not doing Business Application Studio anymore, but I'm doing Build. That's not the case. But with SAP Build, we have unified these services so you can more easily consume that. And we'll have a more detailed look in a second. So this is called apps and extensions. And maybe I just want to highlight why we call it like this. We see here the big bubbles here are on-stack extensibility and side-by-side extensibility. The on-stack extensibility is what you would probably expect when you hear the term extensibility. So you have a standard SAP app, for example, in S/4HANA, and you add some custom field, custom logic, for example. It's on stack, so the extension is right on the same stack, on the same system as the standard. And in our case for Fiori, this is not just S/4HANA Cloud. This is also S/4HANA on-prem and even ECC, for example, because we have ABAP with ABAP HANA S/4HANA Cloud. Of course, we have ABAP Cloud, but we have ABAP, we have UI5, for example, where these applications are built. And we are going to talk about UI5 flexibility to do those extensions. But also, if you look on the right, if you look on the right, it says side-by-side extensibility. This is what I find sometimes a bit confusing. The SAP calls this also extensibility. I mean, it extends an existing S/4HANA system, for example. It extends that in a bit bigger way by building a whole new app side by side on BTP, right? So it's not sitting on the same stack, but it's side by side and connecting, maybe working with data from S/4HANA. So this is also called extensibility, and this is why you see here at the top, SAP Build is what we call an extensibility solution portfolio, or SAP BTP is an extensibility platform. But what is important for the Fiori context, we have technologies like SAP UI5 and others as well, which play a role all in here and also in the SAP Build. So we see a bit more details. I just want to quickly mention for the low-code, no-code aspect, quickly mention SAP Build apps. So that's one part of SAP Build, and that's the low-code, no-code solution. So it has a drag and drop feature to build the user interface. And also the logic can be created with drag and drop. So like a flow chart, you can connect different activities and even work with data in connected SAP system like S/4HANA, for example, or even have an own backend, for example, on BTP. So I say low code, no code. So this is a solution for someone who would say, I'm a low code, no code developer, right? My use case is that I am not a pro code developer. I don't work in code, but I still want to build an application which can be used productively with all what is needed for that. Or another important scenario is maybe you don't want to follow the Fiori design system, which I mentioned on Tuesday. You may want to drag and drop a different UI here, which is not built with UI5 and the fixed layouts and the Fiori design system and so on. So that's the use case here. And just want to mention now a build code here. I'm just confused here. My watch is give me a second. Okay, sorry for the interruption. So let's, after SAP Build apps, I want to mention Build Code. So that's the pro code solution. On the left, you see the different parts or ingredients of SAP Build, and specifically Build Code contains a number of things. That's what I mentioned. Most prominently, the SAP Business Application Studio. So that's the next generation web IDE. I noticed someone mentioned web IDE here. So that is part of Build Code. And as I said, technologies which you maybe already use or which exist for quite some time, mobile services, UI development. You see some terms we have talked about on Tuesday, the Cloud Application Programming Model, CAP, and also runtime services. This is also new, right? With SAP Build, even with SAP Build Code, we are not only looking at design time, what the developer is developing, and then it's over, but this includes also runtime services, as you can see here. So the background is a bit, in the past, it was very hard sometimes for customers to understand what is needed, for example, to develop Fiori applications. Which services, for example, on BTP, do I need to do Fiori? Let's simplify it like that. And also for us in SAP, it was quite hard. So if I get this question from a customer, it's also not easy for me to understand all these aspects here and say, what's the bill of material you need for Fiori, let's say. So that is simplified with SAP Build. SAP Build contains all of this, right? There's a simplified commercialization, there's one price, and you have all of this, and don't need to find in the BTP cockpit all the different microservices you might need or even not, and so on. So that's the general idea of Build Code. And this is how Build Code looks like. And this is, again, one thing I want to mention. Maybe we can have a quick look into a live system. But I first want to come back to this low code, no code, and pro code topic. What you can see here is the storyboard of an application for customer loyalty management. And you see here 4 different sections. You see some external resources here. You see a data model with customers, purchases, redemptions. And the data model obviously has entities, has some attributes. The customer will have a name and an address and an email and so on. And this data model is being exposed as a service because, right, in web, you have the back end and an exposed service and the front end in the browser. So we have a service, an OData service for these entities. So that's what we need to develop. And once we have a service, we can build a UI that consumes the service. That's the UI application. Remember, on Tuesday, we talked about Freestyle UI5 or Fiori elements. So this is what we need. And here we have a visual tool to see the overall structure of the application. And for each area, there's also visual tools. For example, to build a data model, you have a visual tool to see entities, attributes. You can have the, what's it called, foreign key relationship. And you see how, and you define attributes like this is a character 30 and things like that. You might know from ABAP data dictionary and things like that, but in a visual tool. So this is exactly what I mean. You have visual tools here and you can use them. But it's not the case that these visual tools create some secret metadata which you cannot change, which is somehow hidden, and you are forced to use these visual tools. What is being created by these visual tools is the real thing, the normal thing in the backend. For example, for the data model, it creates CDS files, core data services files. For example, for services, it's the normal code which creates the services. For UI application, it's a UI5 application, maybe with Fiori elements, maybe not. So if you reach the limits of the visual editors, or you just feel like you want to check the code and learn from it or change it, you can always select the, what's it called, File Explorer, I think here. This is what you have in the menu here. And then you have your folders and files. And you can open your code and you can use your code completion and your command line interface and everything. And this is what I mentioned. And this is probably also beneficial for those of you who use both, right? Use the visual editors as long as they are beneficial, as they help you to be more productive. Also AI, of course. But then what is happening behind the scenes is the normal code. And you can always see this. You can remove the visual tools. You can have a look at the files and folders and just go into your CDS file or UI5 coding and change that. And then come back to the visual tool again and so on. And I think this is an advantage. So you're not limited to the visual editors and their capabilities. Of course, they cannot cover all thinkable things you do with code, but then you can just go to your code editor. And maybe we can have a quick look here. So this is, I'm trying this on the BTP trial environment. So you can just create your account on BTP trial if you Google for that, or if you already have that. And you can go to the cockpit and see the different services, or you can directly launch it from here from the start page. This says Business Application Studio, which launches the Business Application Studio or Build code. And in case you have subscribed to the whole SAP Build, which I have, it launches the whole SAP Build. So what you will see in a second is the entry screen of SAP Build. And as I showed you in SAP Build, there's many things coming together. So we have a common entry screen to different functionalities, to build apps and extensions, to build process automations, to build business sites with WorkZone, for example. So they come together in this single entry screen, in this single lobby. And you have, I don't have any projects here, but you would have normally, if you work here, you have different projects, a project of type maybe Fiori application or full stack or process automation All of this mixed here, and you can collaborate with other developers. And you can see that. Let's assume you want to create a new project. And you can choose, right? This is what I had on the slide. Business side with work zone, process automations, or applications. Let's assume I want to build an application. This could be either a full stack application running on BTP or front end. This is a Fiori app with UI5, or a backend or mobile application. So different options. Let's pick the front end. And then there's also different options, a Fiori card, or if I pick the Fiori application, you see the skills I need that, for example, UI5 in this case. And I just put here a project name and I create this project. So let's see. So this is preparing my development environment, opening SAP Build code. And you can see this is a start page here with different options. And this is creating my application. It's opening the storyboard here. It's very limited. This is basically what I had on the slide, right? And you can start with working with visual tools. And of course, I'm not going into a lengthy demo here, but just to show you, you can also work with the file explorer. For some reason, I don't see the files right now, but you should be able to see folders and files here to then work with the code editors. Okay, and again, just to stress this, existing programming models, or let's say best practices we have, for example, UI5 and Fiori Elements we discussed on Tuesday, or the cloud application programming model, or other standards. These are part of SAP Build, or SAP Build code in this case. Right? It's not new technologies and you need to decide or migrate to new technologies. They are part of SAP Build code and we are using them. This is also one thing which maybe is a bit different to previous years, where there was always new tools and new technologies. And then customers were asking, okay, what's your guidance? Should I move here? What's the use case? When should I move? How should I migrate? Give me a decision tree on how can I decide which tool or which technology is right. I think in recent time, maybe in recent 2 years or so, we more consolidated at SAP. So we have also within SAP for our own development very strict guidelines of which tools and technologies, for example, UI technologies or others, we use. And it boils down to very few technologies, two very prominent areas mentioned here on this slide, but there's more. And there's changes in how you access that, for example, bundled as a unified solution with SAP Build. But the technologies are still the same. And I can tell you, for example, for UI5, it is still the strategic technology. And when we build new stuff in SAP, we use UI5. And that's not only for, let's say, the 1000th first Fiori application as for HANA, but also really new solutions, big new solutions we build within SAP. They pick SAP UI5, for example, for the good reasons I mentioned on Tuesday. So we're using these proven technologies also in SAP Build. Just want to make sure. One important scenario here is when we also talk about VS Code. Some of you, I think, also mentioned VS Code. Is we want, as you can see here in the top right, we want to build tools which run in Business Application Studio, in Build, meaning they run on BTP, right? No installation of your development environment, because SAP Build obviously runs on BTP. And the same tools should also run in a local Visual Studio Code, because then you as a developer can choose which environment you want to use. Some developers, I think, have very strong opinions about their development environment. Some prefer the cloud-based, because then you're free from installing and updating the environment on your local laptop. You just have an URL and then off you go. That's what I did when I just called up Build Code. Or you want to have full control of the IDE on your laptop, like local Eclipse or VS Code, then that should also be possible. And for example, with what we call Fiori tools, that's a subset of the tools in SAP Build Code. Those tools we use for building Fiori apps, obviously. These tools, they can work either in Build Code on cloud or in Visual Studio Code. Same tools, same technology, same tools, and they run in both. And I think that's also the way forward. And you will see more from SAP Build, also supporting a local environment like Visual Studio Code. So you have both options. So all these technologies we use for building apps in SAP, or also for you as a partner or customer, for building new apps. But there's not only building new apps, but there's also existing apps. And I just want to mention one aspect here. For UI5 development, we have best practices. So why am I showing this this documentation page with best practices? That's not really interesting. Of course, developers should follow the best practices. I just want to mention why this is important. I mean, we have an existing code base. Maybe you have that. We have it at SAP, which is maybe from some early Fiori projects, and not just created just recently, but maybe has some historical grown code. And there might be a bit technical debt in that coding. If you're a developer, you can easily understand that. So can we move this to a modern code base with latest standards? Because of course there's new developments, for example in UI5 or other technologies, new UI5 versions and so on. And we want to future-proof those apps, make sure that they are modern, that they can get all the innovations we build, for example, in UI5. So we want to move from left to right. And of course, there is some development effort involved in that. And this is not easy, right? If you have an old app and maybe someone else developed that is a bit of an effort. And there's also tool support for that. And nowadays, of course, there's also AI support. And where we want to go with this is that we want to have more tool support, more AI tool support, and less manual development effort to move things to the latest UI5 capabilities, for example. And that there helps the UI5 linter. It's just one example here. I'm not going deeper here in this UI5 topic, but I just want to mention one aspect, also part of SAP Build. The linter is a static code check tool. If you have an ABAP background, you might have used the ATC check, I think it's called, to have a static check of your code. And the linter can check your code and find deprecated code or find outdated code which is not ready for the future. So we have a tool for that. And just a very short video, just to give you an impression. You have some legacy code on the right. You start the UI5 linter and you see error messages. You see 17 red error messages. And the linter has an autofix option. We started again with the autofix option. The code changes on the right, and we have green message, 0 errors. Of course, this is a bit simplified. I just want to give you the general idea. So there's also tools available in SAP Build, not just to do the fancy, I create a new app based on with AI based on a screenshot or on a sketch, for example. But we also have tools for the nasty work of a developer, so to speak, to work, for example, with legacy code. Just want to mention that. So that was all for web applications, right? But we also mentioned native mobile applications on Tuesday, and we have logic and tools for that. And I linked this here. So just as we have design guidelines for web, we also have them for Android and iOS. So they are a bit of a blend with the native designs in this case. We have Figma kits for developers to design Android and iOS apps, the Fiori Mentor app to give code examples, best practices, and also help for designers to understand patterns and how they can fit together. And then for development, the development environments, we have the mobile development kit in SAP Build. It's also a bit like Fiori Elements to generate a UI based on what you define. Or if you go for the typical UI development, you have the respective SDKs so that you are in the respective IDEs. Okay, and here's again Marvin with the brain the size of a planet, and Marvin helps with some links here. You have a free trial, you can try out Build, and there's not just access to the system. This is also a learning journey with detailed steps you can do to try out SAP Build functionality. There's a tutorial for Build apps and for Build code. We have also a tutorial here, community page, a video. So these are, in my opinion, good entry points if you want to try those out. So that was the blue box here. And let's focus now on the local laptop. I already mentioned Visual Studio Code. Let's have a quick look what is IDE-wise, what we have on the local laptop. And you already can see it here in the box. So we have Visual Studio Code for everything which is non-ABAP, because ABAP is handled in ABAP Development Tools in Eclipse. And this is Visual Studio Code for the rest, I would say. And this is a very short chapter, so I think I mentioned this. We have Build, Business Application Studio, or SAP Build Code on the right. So it's a managed hosted environment on BTP. I mentioned that. Can have a URL, and then you develop in the browser. And you can also use it in Visual Studio Code with the tools like the Fiori tools, for example. So you can work offline. You have full control on your laptop about your development environment if that's the way you want to work. But you can use the same tools and then connect it, for example, to your dev space on BTP, or connect it to other systems where you want to deploy the app you have developed. So both options here, just that you understand this. And as I mentioned, Visual Studio Code will get more attention. So this system that you have both options is what we go for. And then ABAP development in Eclipse. So this is the way to develop ABAP, where in the past you used SE80. We have the ABAP development tools in Eclipse with respective tool bridges also to be called from, for example, SAP Build, or called from cloud environments. And you have tons of tools to develop ABAP or develop ABAP Cloud, meaning this, let's say, I'm not sure if subset is the right word, but a restricted version of ABAP, which is cloud ready, and tons of tools to support that. And again, Marvin has two links with tutorials to install that in case you're interested. Okay, back to our picture. So we covered green, blue, and violet, and we want to look at extensibility, adaptation, right? So we looked at the business user, we looked at the developer, but then this is a bit a case in between. If you have standard application from SAP and you want to extend that. And if we look at the UI aspect, we would first have a look at what's the standard app. Maybe the standard app fits, right? Maybe you can use the standard app out of the box without any change. I think someone once told me that's never the case. There's no SAP customer ever using the standard without any change. I'm not sure if that's true, but changing the standard is a super important scenario. So what you would do first is to find a standard application. And the Fiori apps reference library is basically a list of all Fiori applications. And what I suggest, maybe we can have a quick look here, just to highlight two features here. I just pick, you can already select here your solution, or you can pick all apps. And I just want to highlight this filter option here. We have good functionality, but often it's well hidden. Just to highlight the filter here, where you can filter for your different solution and version, line of business, which UI technology, product version here, to see only those applications which you have in your system. And also another interesting option. Let me just pick one application here. So this is the cash flow analyzer. I don't know anything about the cash flow analyzer, but I do know that it has a tab here about implementation information, right? This is more technical information, and you can already see, and it has a section on extensibility. And here you can see, for example, how to extend this application with more details and background. So I think this is often also a useful information. So let's continue. We want to extend that application. If it's built with classic UI technologies like SAP GUI, WebDynPro, the subscreen personas is the tool. So it's not touching the application, not modifying the application, but it's sort of putting a layer on top, for example, hiding functionality which is too complex, or adding some custom functionality. So SAP Screen Personas is the tool for the classic UI technologies, and we have SAP UI5 flexibility for SAP UI5. So this is the scenario you might know, extending standard application, and that's not always easy. In the past, it was necessary to have extension points, right? Predefined extension points. If you remember, like a body in ABAP, for example. So that this technology required an application developer at SAP to think maybe a customer or partner wants to extend here in this code. So I put in a body or extension point. And then you can use that and add your custom code to that. But if the developer at SAP didn't foresee this requirement, didn't put in this extension point, this body, didn't put it in the right place, or not enough, or not consistent across several applications, you have a problem, because if there's no extension point, then you would need to modify standard code, which is not good. You might need to copy SAP code, is also not good. So that's a challenge. Managing the life cycle of your extensions. SAP has a life cycle and gets updates, and your custom code has a life cycle, and they should fit together. They should work together. Even after an update from SAP, it should still work. So safeguarding your investments in those custom extensions is a bit a challenge. And with SAP UI5 flexibility, we have a solution. For example, there's no extension points needed. Right? No predefined extension points in each and every application needed. Just because it's UI5, you can extend it. I'm simplifying this a bit. There are some small exceptions. But the general idea is just as it's UI5, you can extend it, no predefined extension points needed. And it's clean core. You might have heard of this concept. So it keeps the core clean in the sense it's not modifying it. It nicely fits into the standard and works even after updates. And it's different user roles supported here. End users to personalize their own apps. Developers, just like you imagine, changing code will change it, the application, or extend it for everyone. Or key users. Who's key users? Key users are people who are not developers, but they have some technical understanding. They want to extend an app for a group of end users. A key user knows how a team works and tailors, extends, or adapts a standard application to the needs of a team or the company or many end users. And I just want to show you how that looks like. So you can play around with this as well. This is in the UI5 demo kit. So you type in ui5.sap.com. There's the section demo apps here. And in the demo apps, if you scroll down a bit, there is a section called SAP UI5 Flexibility Demo Apps. And for example, there's this first app here called Key User Adaptation. And if I open this app, it launches a managed product app, right? This is a runtime application. Now assume I'm a key user. I have an option. I have a special authorization. I have an option to adapt the UI here. I click this and you see that the UI changes and I can use drag and drop. For example, if I know the end users, they need the description. This is the most important field. I move it up. So it's the first field. But they use a different terminology. They don't understand description. They call it, let's say, text. That's the language they understand, they are used to. So I change this, and now the field is called text, including translation and transport management and everything you would expect for this scenario. And maybe the rating here, that's too complex. They don't need this. It's too complex for them. So I can remove this field. And there's more functionality. The general idea is using drag and drop, I can make changes, even more complex changes than these, and I can activate them and provide them to many users. For example, also role-based for certain roles only. And these are layered changes. If you have a standard application, then there's changes developer is doing. Developer is doing also changes, but a developer is working in code. So developer is working in build code, creating so-called adaptation projects, but they use the same logic, right? This UI5 flexibility logic to in a clever way connect it to the standard. So these are deltas, so you can still see or use or execute the standard which is below. And the key user changes on top. Again, deltas, they are all executed end user changes. And the effect is then the runtime application. So if you call the application, it calls the standard application and adds the changes, the deltas on top. Okay, this is a bit of a summary of UI5 flexibility. It has intuitive coding. I just showed you a little bit. And the resulting extensions are, says here, modification free, life cycle stable, as this is really the best solution we have, much better than what we had in the past, in the sense that your custom extensions would still run properly, even if you update the standard. And no predefined extension points needed, of course. And this is a bit decision guidance here on how you go about extensions. So if there's a standard app available, you can use the standard app, of course. And if it needs changes, maybe the key user changes I just showed you, they are sufficient. So you use that. Maybe not. Maybe there some more serious coding is needed. Then the developer adaptation, which I haven't showed you, is needed. And if it's a classical UI, you can use that or use screen personas, obviously. Or then if it's getting even more serious, you might build your own custom application here with the technologies we also discussed. Just a little overview here. And again, Marvin giving you entry points to UI flexibility, screen personas, and also tutorials. So in case you're interested in UI5 flexibility in the key user adaptation, which I just showed you very quickly, or the equivalent for developers, really to add a bit of custom logic, a bit of code, then have a look at this tutorial here. Again, I will share the slides with Tania, and Tania will put it in the YouTube description. So what you see here in YouTube is where Tania will link the slides. Okay, going back to the overview, and we're missing SAP Mobile Start. So now we are again back to the business user calling up applications, and it's mobile, it's native mobile, and it's exactly the equivalent of SAP Start, right? We looked at SAP Start on Tuesday, and this is the mobile equivalent. So you have a native mobile technology integrated into your respective mobile operating system to launch the applications. And maybe I can just quickly show that. Let me just see if I can show my screen here. Just a second, I just want to show my mobile screen. So I hope you can see we have too much in the background. I think on the left you should see my mobile screen, right? So this is the SAP Start application, and if I launch that, you can see a native screen with notifications, with favorites, to-dos, and you can start. You see here a bit of analytics insights here, and you can launch applications. You can launch native mobile applications. You can launch web applications. So that is all in this SAP Mobile Start. And just to show you that it's integrated into the operating system, I can just try to show you the widgets. Let me just add a widget. Oh, I haven't done enough steps today. Let me just see if I find a widget from SAP Start. Here you go. Right, so there's a number of widgets here available, and you can add the widgets just to your, in this case, to my iPhone here. So it is well integrated into native mobile technologies. Okay, and also watches devices. And Marvin with entry points, a video if you want to get an impression, and the mobile experience community to learn more. So this was the quick run through to some of the topics I mentioned at the beginning. This is I put here the disclaimer teaching concept. So that's not an official SAP slide which covers all aspects. So there's certainly things missing or not complete, but I thought it's a good way of explaining the full scope, the most important scope here of tools and technologies which are relevant in the context of SAP Fiori. So thank you very much. And just in the sense of the Hitchhiker's Guide, don't panic. and use the links here provided in the slides to learn about the technologies and connect in the community with fellow developers and learners, for example. So thank you very much for your attention, and I would hand it over to Tania to handle your questions.
Great. Once again, thank you so much, Oliver, for your absolutely great presentation. So the question is, well, there is one question about the latest version of SAP HANA. I was asking whether maybe it was referring to SAP HANA Studio, since we're talking about development of applications, development tools. Another attendee mentioned that the latest version is HANA 2.0. Version 73. The next question is, can we access ADT in BTP? Does it exist there?
Yes, ADT, the ABAP development tools, they run in Eclipse, so they exist on your local laptop, but they are the tools for ABAP development, full stop. And if ABAP development happens on BTP, for example, in the BTP ABAP environment, for example, using the ABAP Cloud development model, then also the ADT is the environment. So ADT in Eclipse is for ABAP, full stop. Wherever this ABAP is, ABAP on BTP as well. So yes.
Thank you. Oliver, perhaps you can unshare, then we're
Sorry.
visible more. Bigger, great, thank you. So, will the presentation be shared? Yes, you already mentioned just now. Once I have the presentation, it needs to be uploaded securely, and then I will post the link in the video, in the description of the video, underneath, inside the description. Give it a couple of days, because it needs to be sent somewhere, etc., etc. The next question is there a solution in SAP Build for intent-based navigation between different apps?
Yes, this is SAP Build Workzone. So in case you know Fiori Launchpad, you can see Workzone as the next generation of an ABAP Launchpad you have maybe in your on-prem system. So Workzone is exactly where you define the navigation, intent-based navigation, and how you navigate from app to app or even to different systems and so on. So SAP Build Workzone, or probably in this case, Workzone Standard Edition is the solution. Yes.
Thank you. Next one is there a solution in SAP Build for app reusability custom extension?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean with app reusability. So custom extension, yes. So I was talking about the UI extensions, and just like for UI, because our focus was Fiori, more UI, there's also extension capabilities in the backend, for example, for the services you generate, or extension capabilities for the CDS models in ABAP and so on. So there's extensions on all levels where you can add your custom extensions. And maybe clean core is one term here, where we have a whole concept on how to do these extensions in a clever way. So that's definitely possible. I'm not exactly sure app reusability, whether you mean components in UI. So that is possible, but I think app reusability, not exactly sure. Maybe you can give more details what you mean with app reusability.
In the meantime, while we're waiting for Thorsten to answer it in the chat, Oliver, I would like to ask a quick question. Extensibility, you already mentioned it, but it's really an important topic for all our customers. And has it become easier with SAP Build?
Yes, definitely. And I have to agree. I mean, it seems you have the same experience. So if I'm doing any talks at events or conferences, the questions I get, many questions are on extensibility. So you really feel that this is a scenario super important for partners and customers. And I think we've made some great steps. And I know from the questions that managing the extensions, like which partners or customers did, and keeping them alive with an ever-changing SAP standard application underneath, that is a challenge. And I think definitely in the UI area, in the UI5 area, what I explained for UI5 flexibility is a huge step forward to what we had before. We had extension points and controller hooks in UI5 before. That's basically a very similar approach to the bodies in ABAP, for example. But there we made a huge step forward. And as you can see, the whole SAP Build, or you could even say the whole BTP, are the extension platform, the extension tool. So we put a lot of effort in that. One example, which I didn't show, unfortunately, is the BTP, again, need to get the naming right, the SAP Build extensibility wizard. So if you do a developer extension, you would go to your development environment, build code, for example. But the extensibility wizard lets you launch this whole process from a running Fiori app. So you don't need to enter your development environment. You need to think, which is the Fiori app I want to extend? It has an index F, they have some ID, F something number, and then enter this process and so on. But you can start it from the running Fiori app. And at the top right, you can select extend. And then you're guided through this process, whether you want to extend UI or the backend or add some custom processes or so on. Start it from the running UI. This is another feature. So I think there's huge progress here. And I have to say, we also get good feedback about this. So there's great things. So I'm convinced. I'm not just giving out marketing messages. I'm really convinced.
Great. Thank you so much. We are already over the time. I would like to offer Thorsten to reach out to us. If you need more clarity, please reach out to us. You can also add a comment in underneath the video, and we will look at that. We'll come back to you, definitely. Just reach out. And with this, once again, a big thank you, Oliver, for your excellent presentation, for answering all the questions, and a warm thank you to our attendees for joining. I hope you got a lot of value from this session. And I wish you a great day, a great evening, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.